all keeping safe and well. Today I'm going to take you to an introduction to the letter to the Philippians. So last week our community group started to study this book, and I was assigned to give a context, a background, basically an introduction to the letter to the Philippians. And I thought to make a video of it and upload it on YouTube, because I just think that people have much time right now, so if they're on the internet and they're searching for something, this would be beneficial. And if this benefits just even one person in the entire world, this is worth making the video for. Okay, so let's start. Here we go. In studying any book of the Bible, it is very important that we know the details that we cannot just read on the letter or the book itself. We need to know who's the author. We need to know the cultural context. We need to know who the letter was sent to. This is essential in order to have a grasp on the original intention of the author when he wrote this book or this letter. Because we did not read the scriptures with having our own interpretations in our mind only. We need to dig in and seek the original message that the author intended to convey when he wrote this letter. So knowing who the author is, knowing the cultural context, knowing the circumstances, knowing the recipients of the letter, knowing the purpose of the letter is very, very important to understand what this book is all about. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction. This is an overview, a macro view of the book, and then this will hopefully help you understand and interpret the details of the book. So here we go. So I'm going to take you to 5 different things that about this book. First, the author, and then the recipients, the date and location, the purpose, and the major themes. Now, before I continue, let me just tell you that if you have a good study Bible with you, all these would have been in your Bible. So I encourage you all guys to invest in a good study Bible. You don't have to know everything about the book to be able to understand what message it is trying to convey. You don't have to have theological education. You don't have to go to seminary. But if you have a good study Bible, that would be a very, very good investment in your personal study. So for my case, I have the ESV Global Study Bible, and then I also have the Reformation Study Bible, which is also in ESV. I am hoping to buy a different translation soon, but for now these are what I have. So you can also go to some resources online. There are a lot of resources online that would give you introductions of books. My favorite site that I go to when I'm looking for context and introductions is the Grace to You website, the online ministry of John MacArthur. So you can go to gty.org, and there you will find all the introductions of all the books of the Bible. Okay, so here we go. Author first. Who is the author of the book of Philippians? First, it is Paul the Apostle. So what do we know about Paul the Apostle? Paul was a former Pharisee and persecutor of the church who got converted on his way to terrorize Christians. We can read all about that account in Acts chapter 7, verse 58 to 9 to 31. So he was a Pharisee. He even calls himself a Pharisee of Pharisees, I think, in this book as well, in Philippians. And you can also see in this book, in Philippians, you can also see some of Paul's achievements as a Jew, as a Pharisee. And he really was a persecutor of the church until Jesus himself revealed himself to Paul on his road to Damascus. So you want more details on that, you can read Acts 7, 58 to 9, 31. And then when Paul was converted, he was set apart to be an apostle to the Gentiles. So we read it in Acts 9:15 and Galatians 27:7-8. So his main ministry really was to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. And then Paul planted churches in several places in Asia, in Europe, and including Philippi. So yeah, so this book or this letter that he was sending was to the people that he met in Philippi when he was there ministering to them, and they were part of the church that Paul himself had planted. Of course, there are many things that we can say about Paul. There are many things that we can learn about Paul in the book of Acts, in his letters, but for this purpose of introducing Philippians, I think this would be sufficient. Okay, next, recipients. So the recipients of this letter is the Philippian Church. What do we know about the Philippian Church? First, the Philippian Church is the first church Paul planted in Europe during his second missionary journey. We can read all about that in Acts chapter 16, verses 6-40. The first convert in Philippi was a woman named Lydia. So this is also in Acts chapter 16, guys. So Philippi, normally Paul's practice was that when he goes to a city, the first thing he does is go to a synagogue, preach the gospel there. And when he's rejected, he goes to the market or the agora. So synagogue and the agora, Jews and then to the Gentiles. But in Philippi, he did something different. The reason is because inside the city of Philippi, there was no synagogue. So there were very, very few Jews in Philippi that there was no synagogue there. So the rule during that time was, in the Roman era, is if you have 10 Jewish men in the city, you can build a synagogue. So that means that in Philippi, there were less than 10 Jewish men, if there was any Jew at all. So Paul actually had to go out of the city in order to find a place of worship. So when he comes out, he finds a place of worship by the river. He met women there. And Lydia was a woman, a wealthy woman, was the first convert. So this church was mainly composed of Gentiles. And then Paul and Silas were imprisoned because of casting out an evil spirit from a slave girl. So when Paul was continuing to minister in Philippi, there was a slave girl who was possessed by a demon who was following him around. And then finally, Paul got annoyed. He cast out a demon from the slave girl. And this slave girl had owners. So this slave girl who was possessed by a demonic spirit was actually being used by her masters to earn money through fortune telling. So this slave girl was a fortune teller. So when Paul casts out the demon from the slave girl's power to tell the future, of course, we know that she can't really tell the future, but for this purpose, we can use the term. Her power to tell the future was gone. So her owners got mad because they lost a means of income. They got mad at Paul. They instigated a mob. They beat Paul and Silas with rods, and then they put them in prison. So in prison, we see in Acts chapter 16 that a Philippian jailer was converted. So while Paul and Silas were in prison, at midnight they were singing, they were praying. They were doing so really loudly that all the prisoners were hearing them. And so while they were doing that, there was a great earthquake. All the doors were opened. Their shackles were unfastened. And then when the jailer realized what was happening, he thought that all the prisoners escaped. So he drew a sword and attempted to kill himself. So by the way, guys, when you read this account, you would have wondered, why did they want to kill himself? Because during the Roman era, the punishment of a jailer who loses a prisoner, it's death. So if you're a jailer and your prisoner escaped, punishment, death. That's it. So that's the reason why this jailer acted that way. So when he was about to kill himself, Paul stopped the jailer, telling him that everyone was there in the jail still, that he didn't have to kill himself, and then he preached the gospel to the Philippian jailer, and then the jailer was converted. The Philippian magistrates apologized to Paul the following day, and Silas. They released them from prison after learning that they were Roman citizens. So after Paul and Silas were released from prison, they left Philippi and went to another city. So what do we know about Philippi as a city? Philippi was named after Philip of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great. Yeah, this is quite an important city. This is a Roman colony. This city was populated in part by retired Roman soldiers, and its inhabitants were given the privilege of Roman citizenship, which included exemption from taxes and right to due process in Roman courts. So most of the population, or the population of Philippi, was composed of mostly retired Roman soldiers. So they were Roman citizens. In fact, the citizens of this city prided themselves in being Roman citizens. This is an important detail, because when you go to chapter 3, I think, when Paul tells the Philippians that your citizenship is in heaven, that really is a huge message that he is giving these Philippians. Because remember that they were priding themselves of their Roman citizenship, and Paul is telling them, hey, actually, your Roman citizenship ultimately does not have value, because you are citizens of heaven. Your citizenship in heaven is more valuable than your citizenship as a in Rome. So yeah, that's quite an important detail that we have to remember also as we are reading this letter. So the Philippians, the city, used Latin as the official language. They adopted Roman customs and modeled their government after Italians. This is quite a Roman colony. Yeah. Next element is the date and location. So Paul in prison. So this letter was written during Paul's imprisonment in Rome around AD 60 to 62. So if you want more details on how Paul came to Rome and why he was in prison, you can read Acts 28 and the chapters before that. So Paul was in prison in Rome, and then Philippians is one of the letters that we call prison epistles. So these epistles, along with Colossians and Philemon, are epistles that Paul wrote while he was in prison in Rome. So this letter is a letter of thanks by Paul to the Philippians for sending him financial provision, and Epaphroditus, who ministered to his needs in the Roman prison. So this financial provision, this financial support from the Philippians was really, really a huge matter to Paul. So you can see the joy that he is conveying in his words in the letter when he expresses his thanks to the Philippians' provision of his financial needs, and also especially for Epaphroditus, who really was his company and his helper while he was there. The fourth element is the purpose. Why did Paul wrote this letter? Of course, to thank the Philippians for the gift, but we can also see in the letter that he's not just thanking Philippians for the gift themselves, but he is thanking the Lord for the fruit that the Philippians are really showing to him, that they are really generous. He sees their generous hearts. In fact, in 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, I can't remember, but in one of them, in exhorting the Corinthian church to give, Paul makes this church, the Philippian church, the Macedonian church, as an example that this church, even though they are poor, they were giving generously He says that their extreme poverty has produced in them a wealth of generosity. So Paul is really not just thankful of the gift, but he is thankful to God for the um, for the manifestation of generosity in the Philippians' heart. He also wanted to tell them about Epaphroditus' recovery from a serious illness and to let them know why he was returning Epaphroditus to them, lest they would think that Epaphroditus' service to him was unsatisfactory. And he also wanted to inform them of his circumstances in Rome, to exhort them to unity, and to warn them against false. And finally, we're going to the themes. The most pervasive theme in this letter is joy. So we can just see that all over the book. I think he uses the word joy or rejoice in the book 12 times. In a 4-chapter letter, he talks about joy 12 times. So that's pretty emphasized. That is pretty big, huge theme in this book. Unity in the church, he also talked about that, exhorting the people to be united, partnership in the gospel, contentment. So we can see that when he says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So that is a very, very misused verse in the Bible, and I'm pretty sure that most of you have come across that verse. That verse does not tell you that you can do anything, guys. What Paul is saying that he is contented whether he is in need, in lack, or he is in bounty. That's what he says. That's the context when he says he can do all things. You need to say he is contented with everything. Loss and gain. Counting everything as loss for the sake of gaining Christ. That's also a major theme in this book. And of course, Christ's humiliation and exaltation. That's about it, guys. So I hope you were helped by this introduction. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more of this content, let me know. Bye.